What's going on, YouTube? What's up, Raider Nation? I'm Bubba the Raider, coming at you today. It is Saturday, January 13th. And I know I haven't made a video in a while. And I was actually going to get into that because there's been, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 times over the course of the season that I have sat down, thought out, planned out, got ready to make a video, and this was a very interesting season, so I didn't end up doing it, and I'm going to tell you why. So to start, we ended the season not where we wanted, barely missed the playoffs, 8-9. Couple really solid wins in there, couple losses that shouldn't have been losses, but learning experiences. Also, if you couldn't tell, it is crazy snowy behind me. I know that light might be kind of blinding. I could adjust, but this season was hard to start the season. If I'm honest, I didn't make videos because I kind of lost interest. I didn't lose interest in the team. I did lose, not interest in the team, but I lost hope. Like, I watched every snap this season, like I do every season, and I stuck with the whole time. But truth be told, I wanted Josh McDaniels gone like I've never wanted anything before. I started the season to the end of the season, or till he was actually let go on Halloween. I wanted him out, and I was so happy when it actually happened. I was nervous because we had a really rocky quarterback situation, and I was not ultra hopeful about Jimmy. I'm a Derek Carr stan, if that's what you want to call me, to the bone. Now that he doesn't play for us, I wish him all the best. He's not a Raider anymore. He will always be like a Raider forever, but while he wears that jersey, he's not a Raider. And so I wish him the best when it comes to us playing them. It's on site, and that's how it goes. But I was not happy with the decision. And so that left us with Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, and Aiden O'Connell. I liked what I saw from Aiden O'Connell in the preseason, but I wasn't hopeful. I did not like what I saw from Jimmy, and I was not hopeful about Jimmy. And I was not excited about the prospect of having a high draft pick, taking a quarterback and letting them sit with Josh McDaniels for a year, and then watch Josh McDaniels get fired because he doesn't know what he's doing, and then starting this whole cycle of coaching and system instability for a young quarterback. And that's exactly what happened, right? That's what Aiden O'Connell is faced with at this moment. And that is what I believe is a huge part of Derek Carr's inability to really have consistent success at the level of that we hope for. At its crux, it's the constant turnover of the coaching staff. So I was not optimistic at all this season. But when we fired Josh McDaniels on Halloween and we moved AP up, I was a little confused at first about why our linebacker coach. I thought it would have been, Patrick Graham, or I know that Rob Ryan worked with the team and something like that. But when it was Antonio Pierce, I was like, whoa. And I was like breathing fresh life before I saw what the team looked like. That first game against the Giants was the most excited I think I was all season. Definitely up to that point. Oh, there's like a hair floating. But then I decided to kind of wait and see how things progressed because I didn't know what I was looking at yet. And I saw a lot. I saw Patrick Graham, who I was really upset didn't get fired as well. I thought he had done a horrible job. I watched him what I would assume, reflecting on the season. I watched him get the reins. I watched him not be constricted by the head coach, and our defense looked incredible. It looked incredible. I watched players get really excited and energy and light. And, we beat the Giants and we beat the Jets, and that still was like, those are teams we should have beat. And then we competed with Miami, and I was like, whoa, I didn't expect us to even be in the game. And people will argue with me about this, but we competed with Kansas City that first time. Jumped out to a 14-point lead, and I thought, wow, like this is something. And then the Minnesota game was a game we should have won. And then we did what we did to the Chargers, and we did what we did to the Chiefs, which was incredible. And then we did what we did to the Broncos. And I'll just say this, like, we are now in this weird kind of nebulous area, right? And I am extremely invested and extremely interested, and that's why I wanted to hop on here now and take this time to kind of give a little bit of my thoughts and what I think we should do moving forward before we start making decisions, which is going to happen it could happen today, some of these decisions. So I wanted to get ahead of the ball and tell you where I'm standing right now, and this could change over time. But I think moving forward, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hire a GM. Couple names that are sticking out to me. I'm going to just tell you two right now. Champ Kelly, who is our interim GM, who Mark Davis has said, had he not picked Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels, Champ Kelly would have been the pick. And Ed Dodd, right? And these are the names that everyone's talking about. I'm not telling you anything new. If you're following this search, you know this. Last time, Ed Dodd was my number one GM candidate. I'm not going to pretend like I know all about the GMs all over the place, but I like the work that I had seen that Ed Dodd had done and the teams he had kind of bounced around with. You watched how he went over as the assistant GM in Indy, and Indy really put together a nice season and a nice offseason. They found their quarterback of the future, it looks like, in the guy I wanted more than any of the quarterbacks in this last class, which proves to be wrong because CJ Stroud has proved me wrong. He looks incredible. But in Anthony Richardson, he was the guy I was the most interested in if we were going to take a quarterback. I think Champ Kelly deserves this job. I think it's hard to show in an interim tag halfway through the season after the trade deadline. It's hard to earn that GM role. But his first move was to go out, and I know this is influenced by Antonio Pierce, but he went out and he signed Jack Jones, who has been our number one corner. Nate Hobbs too. Like, the two of them have been incredible, and Amik really played well too this year. And I'll do another video about who I think, like free agency and all that stuff here in the upcoming weeks. But I think Champ Kelly has earned it. I think Champ Kelly, they're going to go through the interview process. They've made that clear. They're going to abide by the Rooney Rule, which in general I think is a great rule. I am a little confused about why not confused about why we have to stick to it, but it's like, I don't know that they would punish us because we're hiring two minorities if that's the route we go. As someone who's half black, I really love the idea of minorities who have historically not been represented in the GM or the head coaching role having an opportunity to get their name out there, but I also don't really love it as a insincere box to check. So that's neither here nor there. But what I will say is I think Champ Kelly has earned this job, and I hope he interviews well, and I hope that's the move we make. Next, I'm going to talk about some coaching candidates, and again, I'm not going to say anything that you haven't, I'm sure, heard a million times. But I'm going to show you where I stand on this. So I'm going to start with like some honorable mentions. If we don't go with the big two, and you know who I'm talking about, these are guys that I think I would like for us to bring in. So honorable mentions: Ben Johnson, the OC for the Lions. He's not going to be on the table. He's not going to be available. I think he's going to go to Carolina or Washington or somewhere like that. But really like what he's done in Detroit. with their offense. And the revitalization of Jared Goff, I think that could be helpful. The next name, Mike Vrabel. I really like what I couldn't believe that the Titans fired him. I think that had more to do with that disagreement at the top than it did with his performance. I know that they weren't great this year, but he's really turned that team around over the last couple of years. John Gruden, I think that I have some pretty complicated views on what happened with him last time he was here. I think that the emails were, 10 years ago, and people can change. But I don't really like the way he handled it. I felt like he definitely got caught in a lie when he came out and he said, this was it. This was the only email. And then more emails came out, and he knew that the emails had come out. I think had he come out and just kind of owned it right off the rip it felt like he was kind of lying about it. I felt like that kind of lost the locker room. However, people can change. I also have issue with the amount of control that he might have had. But I would not be upset with that move. The last kind of honorable mention name is Kellen Moore. He's the OC this year with the Chargers. He was with Dallas before. When we hired Josh McDaniels, he was my number one coach that I wanted to be the head coach. I liked him when he was a player. I know he wasn't great, but he will be a head coach at some point, and I think he'll be a pretty good one. Now, that brings us to Antonio Pierce, AP, Jim Harbaugh. I'm not going to be a fence sitter, okay? I have a very strong feeling for one, and I'm watching Raider Nation tear each other apart about this. Like, Raider Nation tears each other apart about everything. But I would say that I feel very strongly about one. I would be okay with either. Jim Harbaugh is a winner. He's a consistent winner. He was a winner at San Diego State. He was a winner at Stanford. He was a winner in San Francisco. Obviously, he is a winner this year of the national championship in Michigan, right? He's turned that program around. No doubt about it, he is a winner. He's also a very strong personality, and I think he's made for the college game. I think that the kids love him. I've heard interviews with kids that ride for him. I think college kids, that's the perfect environment for that kind of a personality. He wore so thin in San Francisco that players were on record as saying they wanted to punch him in the face. Now, I think it's a fine line, and this is a stance that I've kind of changed because I coach football. I'm not coaching right now, but hopefully in the next year or two I will get back into it. And I'm an intense coach too. And I believe that the coach is a coach and a player is a player, and you got to know your role, and those are the roles. But as I'm getting older and I'm a teacher and I'm watching how you operate with people you're teaching, and then you start looking at the dynamic of pro football where these are your team, this is your team, but they're also professionals, right? They also have their livelihoods and their paycheck and it's a job, it's their job. And so sometimes those things don't mesh, and that's what happened in San Francisco, and people can ignore that all they want, but if he is like the end-all be-all greatest coach and you're going to win Super Bowls with him, then why is he not in San Francisco today? Why did they let him go? Why did they move on? And it was not a quick, like, he was super successful, but it was not a long-term he was there. And so I have concerns about that, but he is a winner, no doubt about that. And if he ends up being our head coach, I will be on board until I'm not. I tried to do that with everyone. I tried to do that with Josh McDaniels. It was harder with Josh McDaniels. I was not excited day one, but I wanted Harbaugh as well then, but Kellen Moore the most. And I still had the same concerns about Harbaugh then, but you know, that with that said, I'm Team AP all day. I think he has earned this job. I think he has shown us. He had a 10-week job interview, and yes, the Miami game and the Kansas City game, round 1, we lost. Okay. The Minnesota game was what the hell. But you watched the way the team played. And any coach is going to have a learning curve, and they're going to have bumps in the road. And when you have, I'm going to get ahead of myself, but I don't know that. It's the same with quarterbacks. Aiden O'Connell had ups and downs. And when you have a fourth-round rookie quarterback who didn't take starting reps much, except for when you took over, sans the first Charger game, and you don't have your staff, and you didn't have off-season and training camp to get them ready, you're going to have ups and downs anyway. But I think that what AP has learned through this process is probably immeasurable. And if we have Harbaugh, there will be ups and downs, especially in the first year. If we hire anyone else, there's going to be ups and downs. And I think that we've already got to jump on that in a season that we were knocking on the playoffs. The Colts game was frustrating. We lost that game too. I didn't mention that earlier, and that was the game that knocked us out of the playoffs. But again, ups and downs. I think AP has earned it. I saw this morning that Max Crosby has come out and apparently stated that if we don't hire Antonio Pierce, he's going to request a trade. And I know a lot of Raider fans feel strongly about that, and I think Max is my favorite player on this team. I think he's the best player on this team, him or Devontae. And I don't blame him. We need stability. We can't keep doing this. We can't keep doing this. Mark Davis cannot keep rolling the dice. He's not even rolling the dice. He's taking older guys who have a high buzz. It's like they're shiny things, and that's great sometimes. But when you look at this league and you look at who's being successful right now, they are consistent guys, and they are young, upcoming guys who are brilliant minds. You look at Mike McDaniels, okay? You look at DeMeco Ryans. Even we don't know how he's going to do, but the Patriots just brought in Gerard Mayo, right? Young guys who are adapting with this game. And I don't know that Gruden was adapting with this game. I don't know that Harbaugh will adapt to this game. I don't know that obviously Josh McDaniels didn't. It's the same thing. And so we can't keep just doing this 2-year quarterback or coach rollout, because it doesn't allow our quarterbacks to get consistency in systems and consistency. It doesn't allow us, look at Mahomes. Same coach all the way through. Look at guys like Josh Allen. Who's the young quarterback that people criticize the most at this point that they're starting to look at for his lack of success is Justin Herbert. He's had 3 head coaches? I'm an Oregon Ducks fan. I did not think Herbert would be this good, and I will tell you that Herbert is not the reason that the Chargers are where they have been. But he's starting to get what I'm going to call the Derek Carr treatment. He's starting to get side-eyed and, a quarterback should be able to overcome those things. No, they shouldn't. They can't. It's a team sport, and the team is headed by a head coach. That needs to be a slam dunk pick, and I think that Antonio Pierce can be that. I also think it would be the smartest pick for Mark Davis. You have done your own thing every single time. Jack Del Rio, Dennis Allen, John Gruden, Josh McDaniels, right? You've done your own thing every time, and every time it has blown up in your face. Now you have the players and the fans, a lot of the fans, not all the fans, calling for this person who is a Raider and who has proven it. if you go out and you take a risk on Jim Harbaugh, which again, not saying that it's a bad thing, but you go out and you take a risk on Jim Harbaugh and it blows up in your face, people are going to revolt. It's going to be, you're going to lose a lot of people of this team. You are going to lose, I mean, if you're a fan that's willing to leave over that, you're not a Raider fan. I believe that. But people are going to be really upset. They're going to boycott buying things, which I've already done during the Josh McDaniels era. I wouldn't buy Raider stuff. I watched every game, but I wouldn't do it. I'm not giving them my money. More so than just like watching the game or whatever. Like, it's not going to happen. You're going to lose a lot of that respect. Whereas if you go out and you take an Antonio Pierce, you show that you are willing to listen to your fans, you're willing to listen to your locker room, and if that doesn't work, everyone goes, okay, that's not on him. That might not have been his first choice, but he was willing to listen. There will be some people that be like, you can't listen. This is what happens when you listen to fans. This is what happens when you listen to the locker room. But not a single one of us know football more than Devontae Adams. Not a single one of us know football more than Max Crosby. And when these guys are out here going, this is my guy, that means something. That means something. And so I think Antonio Pierce has earned this job, and I think we need to get on hiring him as quickly as possible before someone else does, because he's starting to get interest. And I know, again, there's boxes to check with the Rooney Rule, which I don't like that part of it. But I think he's generating genuine interest, and I think he really has this team in a solid place. Okay, so Champ Kelly, AP, that's where I'm at. Now, the next thing, the three things we have to hit this offseason. Like, these are the big three, the biggest three things you can have on a team. GM, coach, quarterback. I firmly think that AOC, Aiden O'Connell, did a really good job at times this year. I think he held us back. I don't think he is the guy. Now, if Antonio Pierce comes in and goes, I'm not, or whoever, sorry, I'm saying it, I think that Antonio Pierce would be the only coach that would roll with Aiden, is why I said that. But if he comes in and he's like, hey, we're picking at pick 13, there are 5 first-round quarterbacks, all 5 of them off the board. By the time we pick, I'm not giving up draft capital to go up and pick one of them. I want to see what Aiden O'Connell can do with another year. I could live with that, right? I don't know how good I think that would happen, but I mean, we took care of business in Kansas City with him at the helm. So, and granted, he didn't play well, but there were times where he did, and you can't take things away. Like, he took care of the ball. He did not turn the ball over in the last 6 weeks, right? Not once. Or throw an interception in the last 6 weeks. I think he might have lost a fumble. But I think we have to draft a quarterback. And there are 5 guys. Caleb Williams and Drake May are in kind of like this upper echelon in my mind. And I need to watch a lot more film. Okay, I will tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I need to watch a lot more film on all of these guys minus one. I watched a lot of Caleb Williams football this year. If I had to choose, he would be the guy, okay? I know that people don't like his attitude and these things. He came out and he said that he's not going to declare unless the Bears have told him they're going to trade or whatever, and people have feelings about that. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't really care. It's his prerogative to go when he wants to go. No one is forcing him to declare for the draft right now. And I don't have an issue really with that. I think that Drake May is someone I want to watch more film on, but he kind of reminds me of Justin Herbert. And being a Ducks fan, I like Justin Herbert. I like Drake May. I like some of the things I've seen. One guy that I've seen live, because I live in Oregon, it might not kind of look like, it does. If you live in Oregon, this snow is pretty common. But one guy I would say is at the top of my list, not of those two at this moment. And you're going to be like, yo, Bo Nix, right? Because you're a Duck fan, and I love Bo Nix. Love him. Watched every snap he's taken at Oregon. I think he's incredible. Michael Penix. I know that he looked bad in the national championship, and I know that he's older, so is Bo Nix. Michael Penix is different. He's a lefty. He's got a cannon. He's accurate. He's mobile enough. I think that he is a guy that I really, 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 really would love to see in these colors. Jaden Daniels, I love what he can do with his feet. Watched him at ASU. Didn't watch him a ton at LSU this year. He won the Heisman, obviously. I think he's great. And Bo Nix, goes without saying. Any one of those five, I would be super happy with. But I think it kind of goes Caleb Williams, Drake May, and then the other three right now I need to do more on, but I think Penix is there, and then it's kind of Bo and Jaden Daniels are kind of neck and neck for me at the bottom of those five. I think all five of those guys are top 15 picks. I don't know that, I'm not saying that they'll go top 15, but I think they're worthy of top 15 picks. Other guys that I'm starting to kind of think, I almost wonder if we should draft 2 quarterbacks, to be honest. You look at Jordan Travis, who is Florida State's quarterback, really good. Snapped his leg, pretty horrific and gruesome. At the end of the season, he probably won't play football next year, I would assume. And so that would be a value pick late. I really like Joe Milton III from Tennessee. Kind of is giving me the little bit I've seen from him, kind of giving me Anthony Richardson vibes, cannon of an arm. But I also think if we can move on from Jimmy, we should. Brian Hoyer will probably retire. I think we should bring in a veteran to compete and coach up, especially if we don't draft one of these guys, because Aiden O'Connell might not progress, right? Like that happens sometimes, sophomore slump or whatever, he might not be in the best position. So I think a guy like Gardner Minshew would be really good to add to this team. But I think sitting where I am, realistically, if we walked away with Champ Kelly, Antonio Pierce, and Michael Penix, I would be super happy. We also have to hit the offensive coordinator position. I was not a huge fan of Bo Hardegree's play calls, and so I hope we retain PG for our defensive coordinator position, and I hope we hit on an offensive coordinator. I think we have to hit on someone that's really experienced. Some names I need to look more into this, but I'm thinking like maybe someone like Frank Reich. I thought he got kind of the bad end of the stick with Carolina, and I think he did with Indianapolis too. But he wouldn't be a head coach, he'd be an offensive coordinator. Sometimes coaches are better suited to be offensive coordinators. Or even like, I don't think that would work. I was gonna say John Gruden, but I think that would be too weird a dynamic in the locker room. So those are my thoughts right now. But really in the upcoming days, we should see an announcement on the head coach and the GM. And then I'll make a video kind of talking about coordinators and offseason moves and re-signing free agents who I think deserves a shot to come back, who I think we should let walk. Draft stuff coming up. I think I'm more interested in this draft right now than I've been in a long time, even though it's my favorite time of the year. And so plenty of content I should be able to make here coming up. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. If you agree with them, let me know. If you disagree with them, let me know. If you like this video, hit the like. If you dislike it, hit the dislike. And if you haven't subscribed and you're interested in what I have to say about the Raiders, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that bell. All right. Until next time, just win, baby.